Bismillah walhamdulillah wa salatu wa salam ala Sayyidina Rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man wala amma ba'd. So, for the last 4 weeks we've been gathering here as a community to discuss what it means to parent with presence. And I want to go back to my introductory notes that I always share at the beginning of these sessions. Number one, as a parent myself, I want to let you know that I'm struggling just like the rest of you. I'm not sitting here claiming that I have all the secrets and all the mysteries of parenting unlocked here. I'm not trying to tell you how to raise your child. I'm not telling you you're doing a bad job. We're here to learn together, reflect, and hopefully just be a little bit more conscious and intentional in how we go about parenting. And ultimately, I hope that you realize you're not alone in your struggles as a parent. It is a really challenging thing to do in the time that we live in, with the world that we see around us, and as it continues to develop. And so, yeah, being surrounded by people that you realize are also struggling is sometimes a comfort. The topics that we aim to cover going forward, inshallah, are these. This is the list right here. But for the past 4 weeks, and including to this week and next week, inshallah, we've been covering, and we will continue to cover an article. Essentially, we're here to discuss an article written by a sister from California by the name of Hina Khan Mukhtar. It's called "Raising Children with Deen and Dunya." And to quickly kind of summarize what this article is. This is an article written by Sister Hina Khan Mukhtar many years ago, probably now at least 16 years ago. And she describes how when she first, she had her firstborn child, she couldn't find many good books in English on parenting from an Islamic lens. So now trying to raise her child, she figured the best approach would be in that, in the situation she was in, was that it would be to look around and notice children that seem to turn out well. And by turning out well, she defines that as doing well academically, career-wise, but also in terms of their relationship with Allah, in terms of their deen. And so whenever she would come across young Muslims like that, she would speak to the parents. Essentially interview the parents to ask them, give me some advice. Tell me what you did. Any, tips and advice you can offer that helped you along the way and that ultimately led to your child turning out the way that they've turned out. So we've covered about 7 of them. So number 1, she writes dua. Dua is foundational. The companionship, suhbah, it will make you or break you, both for your child and for you. The Prophet ﷺ was a living, breathing reality in our lives. These are all the tips that, the 10 tips that she shares, that she learned from these parents. Because she found these common, repeated tips being given to her by various parents. Another was that having fun wasn't haram in our home, but we kept the home environment as pure as possible. Our parents didn't just talk the talk, they walked the walk. I wasn't afraid to be the bad guy, but I never behaved badly. I always kept them close by. And that was the last one that we left off with last week. So inshallah, we're going to move on to the next one. The next tip that she mentions, and this is tip number 8, the parents would tell her that we didn't spoil our kids, nor did we praise them too much. Now, for some of us, when we first read this, it might strike us as a little bit strange. What do you mean? What's wrong with giving your children what they want, what you never had? What's wrong with praising them? Letting them know they did a good job. It sounds like a little bit counterintuitive to what we might, because we often think about the self-esteem, the self-confidence of the child. So we're thinking, well, yeah, let me make them feel good about themselves. And I've seen this now multiple times where parents will talk about their parenting approach, and it's rooted in what they were deprived of in their own eyes. I never got XYZ, I'm going to make sure my child gets XYZ. The assumption is that I was very miserable when I was younger because I didn't get XYZ. I don't want my child to be miserable, so I'm going to give them XYZ. Now, depending obviously on what XYZ constitutes, we could say different things, but to solely base your parenting approach on what you never had is it's not the most ideal. It needs to be a bit more thought out, because that's a form of reactionary parenting. You're reacting to your own childhood and allowing that to determine your own parenting style and approach. Now, what is this tip rooted in? It's rooted in the understanding, and this is really, really critical to the Muslim worldview and the Muslim approach to parenting. It's that we acknowledge that children have what's called a nafs. We acknowledge that the children have what is known in our tradition, in our religion, as the nafs. The nafs is often translated as the ego, or the base desires that an individual has. And the understanding that we have is the nafs is not your enemy, but it does need to be tamed and controlled. When left uncontrolled, a nafs that overindulges can cause an individual to end up turning out, or to end up possessing certain character traits that are not virtuous. Right? So, and it starts from a young age. It starts from a young age. Spoiling your kids. What does that look like? Let me ask you guys. What does it mean to spoil your kids? See, every parent will say spoiling your kids is a bad thing. But then how do you define spoiling your kid? Yeah.
Giving them a lot of materialistic goods.
Giving them a lot of materialistic goods. Okay. Now, we could challenge that, because is that necessarily the case that it spoils them?
Well, if you give them whatever they want.
See, that's the difference here, right? Because you could spoil someone who doesn't receive, relatively speaking, a lot of things. So I don't think it's predicated on how much you give them, but rather on, is it always in response to what they want? That every time they want something, okay, here, we got it for you. Well, what else is another way that people can spoil their kids? Responding to their every demand, right? And why do parents do this? It's the easiest way out. What's another reason why parents might do this? None of them set out to spoil their kids, by the way. That's not a conscious kind of intention. Yeah. Right. They are seeking the approval of their child. And as a parent, you're not going to be able to guide and lead your child if you're seeking their approval. And that's the mistake that the parent is making. That is what's called permissive parenting. We spoke about it last week. So she mentions how these parents, they understood that their guiding philosophy was that my job is not to inflate their self-esteem artificially, but to shape a self, a nafs, that is humble, grateful, responsible, and aware of Allah. When we start to understand that parenting involves not only just fulfilling the needs of the child, but also protecting them from things that are harmful, even though the child doesn't recognize that, we start to realize that there's going to be times where we're going to be seen as the bad guy. Or we're going to be putting them through things that Others might look and say, you're being too harsh on them. And I've been thinking about this a lot recently, because as I witness marital conflict in front of me, marriages that are just not functioning well, they're really breaking down. When you look at it, oftentimes you notice that you have individuals in the marriage that were not brought up being taught to take responsibility for those around them and for things around them. They're brought up only being taught to focus on achievement and performance. Do you understand this? Individuals who from a young age are told what? Just focus on your studies. Just focus on your studies. Don't bother him. Don't bother her. They have studies. They have exams. They need to do well academically. So that's what these young people do, is they focus on their studies. What is the natural byproduct of this approach? Is that they never develop a sense of responsibility for the people around them and for the things around them. Do you see that? Because in their heads, all they think they're responsible for is achievement in academics. So even when they enter the marriage, all they're focused on is achievement. And it's hard for them to shift from a mindset of achievement to a mindset of responsibility / nurturing. Do you get this? So this would be the parent that, despite having a child, is still overly obsessed with their career dreams. Do you get this? They're just constantly focused on career dreams. As a parent, you must learn to balance. Right? Especially as a father, especially. Where you must learn to balance between really working hard to provide for your family, but in a way that's not taking away from your responsibility towards your family and the needs that they have from you. This is a major challenge. Why? Because oftentimes we're not brought up to do that. We're brought up told, sacrifice everything else for the sake of your studies. It's like a default way of thinking. It never occurs to you to pause and say, wait, and when I wake up in the morning, to ask myself, what does everybody around me need from me? It's not a natural way of thinking. You know who often turns out, at least in this one aspect, at least develops this usually, is eldest children, specifically eldest daughters. They develop it almost always. They naturally, they're on one hand, they're forced to obviously pursue studies, so they pursue studies. But then they're also, and it feels very unfair to them growing up, because alongside their studies, they are tasked with all this other stuff that they need to do around the house or for others in their family. It might be eldest son as well, right? Where the elders get to chill, and the eldest son is being tasked with doing all these things. Now his father can kind of hand it off to him, so he takes care of a lot of stuff. It doesn't feel fair when you're growing up. But it provides an early training for the responsibility that will come with marriage when the time comes. And it's interesting because sometimes it can actually end up to the detriment of the child when they grow up. Why? They're so used to fixing things, they refuse to accept that things are broken. I've tried to convince certain people, your marriage is broken. You don't want to accept it. I recognize it's not nice to accept that my marriage is broken. Maybe I need to get a divorce. But someone has to tell them. I'm trying to point out, literally, there's every aspect of your marriage is broken. I asked them, give me 3 reasons why you should continue in this marriage. They can't. They can't give me 3 reasons. Why are you continuing? And they say, well, a part of me believes if I just work harder and try harder, I can fix this. Because that was the mentality they had their whole life. So it's a double-edged sword. It's one of the greatest preparations for marriage. But it also can hold them back from realizing their own limitations. Do you get this? So they feel like they can fix everything. You can't always fix stuff, especially when it involves someone else. So what's the point I'm trying to make here? To come back. I really feel as I look around, and this is just my personal observation, you might agree or disagree, I feel that we do not task our children with enough responsibility growing up to prepare them for inevitably what does fall on their shoulders when they get married. And we do it by telling them, just focus on your studies. Just focus on your studies. And they develop singular focus. Just studies. Which converts to then what? Just work. That's not how a married life, that's not what a married life looks like. That's not what raising a family looks like. So, when we're but the thing about giving responsibility to children, what does it feel like? Child labor. Doesn't it? For those of you who grew up, tell me about the chores and tasks you guys were given when you were younger. Let's go back to when you were like 12. Yes.
Shoveling the driveway.
Shoveling the driveway. MashaAllah. I'm gonna praise these chores. Yes. Emptying and filling the dishwasher. You had a dishwasher. MashaAllah. Respect. MashaAllah.
I'm shoveling the driveway.
Shoveling the driveway.
I'm so salty about that because they got an electric shoveler after I moved out.
Oh, subhanAllah.
The whole time I didn't have
Well,
one.
because the shoveling person's gone.
Yeah.
So now they got the snowblower.
Yeah.
MashaAllah. MashaAllah to what you did, not the snowblower. I'm with you. You're salty. Yeah, on this side. Guys, yeah. Gardening, early on. Respect. Respect to you, man. Good stuff. What else? Throwing out the garbage. Respect. MashaAllah. At the time, we probably all hated it. But it's for our goodness. It is for our goodness. We know this. Any more examples anyone give? Take care of your little brother and sister. Right. Guys, there's not enough examples come from this side, yo. I'm just ignoring the side right now because there's probably more over there too. We need more. What do we got going on here? Yeah. Grabbing groceries. Right.
Cutting the grass.
Cutting the grass. Classic. Cutting the grass. Well, how old were you when you did that? Yeah, but early, as soon as possible, right? As soon as your dad can see this guy can push it, here, it's yours. Now, someone else have a hand up? Vacuuming. Very nice. Very nice. You know, I'm lucky. My son likes to vacuum. I'm like, it's not labor at all. This is a hobby. MashaAllah. No, my son's not coming to your house. You're like, oh, maybe you should come to my house and do this hobby at my house. No, you can't. Yeah.
You're basically like a secretary to your parents.
Right. SubhanAllah. Secretary.
Yeah.
Appointments.
Yeah.
Right? Picking up the phone. Come over here. You speak to
The
them.
government documents.
Government documents. Allahu Akbar.
Taxes.
SubhanAllah. Taxes. Allahu Akbar. And you know, at the time it feels very burdensome. And you know a mistake we make, I genuinely believe this. A mistake we can make is when Allah grants us children, we're like, I'm not putting them through the pain I went through. No. But you are who you are because of that. No, really. Now sure, maybe there's a different approach you can take to getting them to do the chores rather than get out there before I, whatever rest of the threat was. Maybe there's a better approach, right? Maybe there's a better approach. But to not grant them that responsibility, that's reasonable for their age. I think is to deprive them of character development. I genuinely believe this. Do you get what I'm saying? Because when you grant them responsibility, and in the past, this was common knowledge. You go back 100 years, common knowledge that young children in the house have chores and areas that they're responsible for. And not just responsible when the parent tells them. They're responsible to keep an eye on it so that when it needs to be done, they do it. Do you get me? responsible. And that's why these individuals grew up a little bit more ready to take on family responsibilities, familial duties. And it feels like today when I speak to couples and I see the disputes and the conflict, we're not training our children as they grow up to be ready for those responsibilities. And it just all we focus on is achievement. And remember, achievement is a very personal thing. It's what I've accomplished. Sure. But marriage and raising a family, raising children, is not about what you've accomplished. In fact, you'll see many parents very accomplished, but to some degree neglected their children in pursuit of their accomplishment. This is a very difficult shift to make. As you get older and as you mature, to shift from performance and achievement, not to completely shift, but rather to balance. To couple your performance and achievement, your drive, with nurturing. Developing a sense of nurturing. To possess both. And if you don't develop the second part, this thing of nurturing, which involves relationality, to constantly be noticing the people around you, and noticing how they're doing, noticing how they're feeling, noticing what they need, and looking out for them. If you don't develop that, then all you'll do is continue to perform and achieve, but you'll not receive any praise or admiration, because what? That's not what the people around you need from you as a parent. Does this make sense? And this is why everybody outside of the house will think this person's an amazing person. They're such a great doctor, they're such a great shaykh, they're such a great lawyer, they're such a great this. But the people inside the house are miserable. Because they're not looking for achievement. They're looking for a relationship. Does this make sense? This is really critical, guys. To understand that our children definitely need us to push them to perform and achieve in life. But to, as they grow older, to begin to feel a sense of responsibility for the people around them and for the space around them. And you know what parents will do? By parents, I include myself in this. You know, one of the things we do, and I know some of your parents here are going to feel called out, but instead of believing it to the child to develop responsibility and do it, we just go do it ourselves. It's just so much more convenient, quicker. You don't want to have to keep telling them, just go do it. Right? But we have to allow them that space and chance. Because oftentimes when they do it, they don't do it properly. You know what I'm talking about? You tell them, go put it back, and they don't put it back. It's like half hanging off the shelf. Like, you go do it, right? So the next time we're just like, I'm not going to tell them, I'm just going to go do it myself. But, again, number one, you convey only perfect is acceptable. Number two, you don't let them learn from mistakes, and you don't give them space to assume responsibility. This is one thing about nurturing others. You must give them space to assume responsibility. If you continue to do it, but tell them to do it, they're not going to feel the obligation. This is about human nature. If you do not give them space to develop the quality that you want them to develop, and instead what you do is you step in and do the task that you want them to do, they'll never feel a push to do it. Can I give you an example of this? How many of you, when you were growing up, you didn't get a choice of what you wanted to eat? You ate what was cooked in the house by your mother or your father. How many of you? It wasn't like you woke up and said, well, I'm kind of feeling this today. It was, what's in the pot? You just go to the kitchen and open the pot. Like, what are we eating today? And that's what you ate. And that's what you did. That's what I did. How could we do it? For a lot of the young generation today, it's really hard to imagine they could do that, no? Because you give choice, so people develop nakhre. Y'all know nakhre? What's the English word for nakhre? Anybody got an English word for it?
Wine.
Don't be so harsh. Is it pickiness?
Pickiness.
It's a little bit pickiness, a little bit, right?
Like a whiny picky.
Okay. Salty about something, huh? Yeah, a little picky, though, right? You're like a little picky about something. You're just like, no, I don't want this. I want this. SubhanAllah, man. Like, this is something about human beings. The ability to adapt. If we are given little, we can adapt to little. Anyone ever traveled to the east and lived in like a village where there was no options? You know the village that I live in? You know what you eat for breakfast? Every single day. It's the same thing. You don't wake up and say, what do I want to have today? It's parathas and eggs with chai. Standard across the whole village. Today we wake up, pancakes, eggs, omelette, we have like 15 things. And then we started getting multicultural with the shakshuka, and like all the stuff coming in, you know? No, in these places, one thing and everybody ate it. And everybody enjoyed eating it. You didn't feel like you were being deprived. You know, in one of the poems, Abu al-Atahiyah, the Arab poet, he says, وَالنَّفْسُ رَاغِبَةٌ إِذَا رَغَبْتَ فَإِذَا تُرَدُّ إِلَىٰ قَلِيلٍ تَقْنَعُ. He said, the more you give the nafs, the more it demands. But the less you give it, the less it'll be satisfied with. This is the reality. If we think about it, this is so true. We were not miserable eating what was just in that pot. That's why till today, I still enjoy certain dishes, like lentils and eggplant. I actually enjoy that. Believe it or not. Lots of dinner, that's my thing. I love it. So I'll eat those things. I know younger family members that will not touch it. They know that's cooked. They're just like either asking their parents to make something else for them specifically, or Uber Eats. Do you get what I'm saying? SubhanAllah. So this idea that by restricting options for your child, that you are somehow harming them or not being good to them, that a good parent is the one who does everything for their child, gives them whatever they want. Because, if my child is happy, he'll grow up and do what I want. No, he won't. He'll grow up doing what his nafs wants, or her nafs wants. They have this force within them, called the nafs, that they're not aware of. And we're meant to support them against their nafs. Which is why we should teach them about it. I still remember when I had a conversation with my son about his nafs. I told him, I said, when this happens, you know why you don't want to do it? It's because you have something called a nafs inside of you that tells you don't do it, just stay sleeping, don't get up, don't do this. And it's become part of how he thinks about life. Whenever he's feeling lazy, he's like, yeah, my nafs is really pushing me to stay. He doesn't identify with his nafs. He sees his nafs as potentially obstructing. You see that? If you identify with your nafs, all you say is what? I feel this. And if I feel it, I want it. But if you realize you have a force within you that acts against your best interests sometimes, then when you notice that's the case, you can identify and go, my nafs really wants me to not get up and pray Fajr, but I must get up and pray Fajr. I must oppose my nafs. SubhanAllah. Today was really interesting. There's a lot of snow this morning, right? Snow shoveler, you notice that? No, I'm joking. A lot of snow this morning. SubhanAllah. So my son and I, we got up to go outside to do shoveling. And there was a guy, mashallah, man, like Allah guide him and bless him, on our street, right? He was going around with his snowblower, and he was doing like people's sidewalks, and if he saw like an older, gentleman or an older lady, he would go and do their driveway. See, snowblower's not all that bad, they're not totally, you can use it for good. And he came over to my house, and he did the bottom part. And when he saw me come outside, he came over, and he's like, hey, let me do your driveway. He said, move your car. I said, I'm good. I need some exercise. I want to do this. He's like, no, let me do it for you. He said, take me 5 minutes. I was like, okay, if you insist, man, I'll let you do it. It's kind of weird. Right? I said no like 2-3 times. He just kept saying like, no, let me do it. I was like, okay. He said, I won't charge you any money. I was like, that's not the issue, but like, it's cool. And he did it. And I remember how much, subhanAllah, how much my son admired this. He kept telling me, this is our own personal kind of thing we talk about, but he's like, with that man's a warrior. That man's a warrior. Look at how he's doing good for everybody. I said, yeah, he is. I said, he is. Right? So we gave him some little gifts that we brought back from Umrah, from the date farm. We gave him some of those like Dubai chocolates, like some stuff. Like, here is for you, man. Respect you, jazakallah. And then he told me after, he's like, I just got this new snowblower. I'm testing it out. I was like, oh, I'm a guinea pig in my house. That's you?
No, I called it.
You called it, eh? Alhamdulillah, I didn't call it. I was like, he's a nice guy, Well, mashallah. But my son was like, see, what was interesting is my son recognized within himself, he did not have the inclination to do the neighbor's driveway. He barely wanted to do our own. And then he witnesses this guy who voluntarily is going out and doing random people's driveways. And he realized that, wow, this man is really opposing his nafs. Because it's so much more comfortable to just go inside and not be outside any longer. And he's admiring it. And so, teaching our children about the concept of nafs, which is why you don't give them everything they want, and you don't overly praise them. You can be grateful, you can say thank you, but to say you're so great because you did bare minimum is to make them feel that they're always doing people a favor. When sometimes it's not a favor, it's a bare minimum responsibility. Do you understand that? Does that make sense? So you can say Jazakallah khair, thank you for helping out. But saying, hey, you're such a great person because you flushed the toilet is not the praise they need. Does that make sense? Because that needs to be taught as that's a basic behavior that you don't deserve and you should not expect praise for. Plus, the nafs loves praise. You don't want them to be orienting themselves towards external validation and praise all the time. In our current culture, how do we talk about this a little bit without referencing the nafs? We say, praise the effort, not the outcome. So rather than say you're such a great, runner, you try really hard. You get them to focus on their effort. And you praise their effort. Right? What's that trying to do? Trying to protect them from identifying with something that they don't necessarily have control over. Sometimes they might fail, and then they feel like a failure rather than to at least appreciate the effort they put in. So, for us, it's do not praise or accustom our children to external praise such that they constantly seek it. Rather, you want them to orient themselves towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's praise. I'll give you an example here that Hina Khan Mukhtar gives. That one mother, there was a mother she spoke to, and that mother's daughter won a national poetry competition about the Prophet ﷺ. So now, the community invited this girl to come out and recite the poem, perform the poem multiple times, like for different occasions and events. And the mother said no. Really? Why? So she explained. She said, she has received too much praise this week. I fear for her nafs. I don't want her to see herself as special. I don't want her to see herself as, better and superior than other people. And children do this very easily, by the way. Anyone who has children know this. That if they find something that they think they're better in, they start to talk about it. They do. Right? You know what I'm talking about? On the Umrah trip. You know? No? My children will tell everybody, I'm Shaykh's son. I'm Shaykh's daughter. I was like, no, you're not saying that. No, you're not walking around saying I'm Shaykh's son, I'm Shaykh's daughter. No, you're not. You could add that in as like an explanation if they ask. That's not how you introduce yourself. Right? Because number one, I'm not special. Number two, it's not the flex you think it is. Like, no, don't say that. Right? Because if I upset this person, they're like, where's that son over here? I'm joking. So what would they do instead? Instead of saying you're amazing, they would say Allah loves kindness, and what you just did was very kind. Rather than you're so smart, they would say you worked really hard, and Allah Ta'ala is really pleased with how much effort you put into this. Constantly drawing their attention to seeking validation and approval from Allah. Does that make sense? And then, of course, we can speak about material indulgence, and just really teaching children modesty through their lifestyle choices. Right? That they're not special for any material items that they might possess. And I often have this conversation with my children because they'll praise something, and I'll say, "Oh, that's nice. That's a nice thing. Why is that so nice? What does that mean? Does a person who possesses that, are they better than someone who doesn't?" And we start to kind of go through that understanding. Okay, we'll stop here, inshallah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us tawfiq to be people of wisdom that recognize the responsibility that we have towards our children and to fulfill that responsibility in a way that is pleasing to Him. Ameen. Next week, inshallah, we'll speak about this one here. They had a pious father who engaged them. And the final point, which is talk to your kids with love, inshallah.